Hi everyone, thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 440 days, Ukraine stands strong against the forces of the Russian invasion. The Pentagon officially confirmed that Ukraine managed to down Russian Kinjal missile flying at hypersonic speed, reports European Pravda. According to Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Patrick Ryder, the missile was shot down from the Patriot air defense system. The Russians called the Kinjal a hypersonic missile, but after its downing in Ukraine last week, experts suggest that in fact it was a ballistic missile that could fly faster than the speed of sound. The Washington Post informed that the UK is likely to send long-range missiles to Ukraine, reports Ukrainska Pravda. According to the procurement notice, the UK Ministry of Defense is looking for strike capabilities with a range of up to 300 kilometers. An unnamed British official said the media that no final decision has been made. The requested specifications are very likely for air-launched Storm Shadow cruise missiles. Ukraine has long asked Western countries to provide it with long-range missiles, arguing that such weapons could change the course of the war by enabling Ukrainian forces to strike the Russian command posts, supply lines, ammunition and fuel depots deep inside Crimea and in the temporarily occupied territories in the east of the country. The Washington Post noted that since Kyiv is preparing to launch a major counteroffensive in the next few weeks, the ability to strike far behind the contact line will help clear the way for a ground offensive by tanks and infantry troops. It was reported that Storm Shadow can be installed on Soviet-made Ukrainian jets. Such missiles can reach Russia, so Kyiv has promised the West that it will not use donated weapons to strike Russian territory. At the same time, Politica informed that the US does not plan to follow the UK example. The publication notes that the US considers this problem solved thanks to the planned supply from the UK. Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Alexei Danilov said that the final plans for the counteroffensive of the armed forces of Ukraine have not yet been approved by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, reports Radio Liberty. He clarified that it includes the terms and directions of the advance of troops. Danilov pointed out that when someone talks about the details of the future counteroffensive, they are not to be trusted. According to him, several options for a counteroffensive are currently being worked out at once, each of which can be implemented depending on the circumstances. We would really appreciate if you could rate us in the apps where you are listening to the podcast: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others. This way more people would learn about the podcast and truth about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. As expected, the US has announced a new security assistance package for Ukraine worth up to $1.2 billion, reports Militarny. According to the statement on the website of the Pentagon, this package includes additional 155mm artillery rounds, additional air defense systems and munitions for them, equipment to integrate Western air defense launchers, missiles and radars with Ukraine's air defense systems, ammunition for counter-unmanned aerial systems, 55mm artillery rounds, commercial satellite imagery services, support for training, maintenance and sustainment activities. The aid will be provided in the long-term perspective as above-mentioned capacities will be ordered from producers. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy thanked President Biden, the Congress, both parties, and every American family for the unwavering support and for the American strength that makes Ukraine stronger. He added that Kyiv is also working with other partners on additional defense packages to add new opportunities for Ukraine's warriors. The Turkish Defense Ministry informed that bilateral and multilateral meetings with Ukraine, the UN, and Russia on the work of the grain corridor organized by Turkey will be held in Istanbul on May 10th and 11th, reports Interfax Ukraine. According to the ministry, the negotiations will discuss the extension of the grain deal to ensure the rapid, safe, and efficient operation of the grain corridor, which is vital for the world's food supply and security. The Black Sea Grain Initiative to create a corridor for the export of grain from 3 Ukrainian ports, Chernomorsk, Odessa, and Pivdenny, was concluded on July 22, 2022 in Istanbul. with the participation of the UN, Ukraine, Turkey, and Russia for 120 days. However, if Ukraine declares that the initiative has been extended for 120 days, then Russia that only for 60. Ukraine considers the participation of the Prime Minister of Armenia as well as the presidents of Central Asian republics in the event on the Red Square in Moscow on May 9th as an immoral and unfriendly step towards Ukraine, reports LBUA. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine stated that during the event, President Vladimir Putin, who is wanted for war crimes by international justice, justified killings of Ukrainians, destruction of Ukrainian cities and villages, abduction of Ukrainian children, and repressions against residents of occupied Ukrainian territories. Yesterday, Russia celebrated the 1945 Soviet victory over Nazi Germany in what is called the Great Patriotic War of 1941-1945. This is widely used by Russian propaganda as it tries to present the invasion of Ukraine as the continuation of that war and authorities in Kyiv as Nazi regime. The Highlights from Ukraine podcast is a commercial initiative of just two people, and you can support us monthly via Patreon or by sending us a one-time tip via PayPal. Just follow the links in the description to this episode. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.